Look at me taking advantage of my balcony lighting. I'm becoming like a real YouTuber. Hello, I'm back with another video. This isn't a very fun topic, I'm not gonna lie. Who else has been feeling the COVID fatigue lately? Because I definitely have. I mean, I guess it kind of depends on where you live and what your personal situation is and what the lockdowns are like. But I've been wanting to film this video for like 4 days now, and I just couldn't bring myself to do it because I was feeling super mentally and physically exhausted. But I feel a little bit better today. I've decided that I don't want my channel to just be music discussion and reaction videos. I also want to make some personal topics and lifestyle type of topic videos. So here we are. I decided that I'm going to do this thing called Storytime Saturdays, and I know this isn't a new idea. A lot of YouTubers do this, and I'm probably not going to have a story time every Saturday, but I'm just gonna have this little thing where I sit down, chit chat with you guys, have a drink. I'm just drinking lemon water today, which I know is a little boring, but it's important to stay hydrated, kids. And I wasn't going to tell this story because it is a little bit personal, but I've come to the conclusion that if I'm not willing to get at least a little bit personal on my channel, then I'm probably not going to go very far considering the types of videos that I want to make. So here we are. I know some friends and family want to know this story because I've been asked about it quite a few times, and I haven't really talked about it on social media much because I knew I wanted to make a video about it eventually. Plus, people are searching for this topic right now, so gotta take advantage of that YouTube algorithm, am I right? I wanted to make this video before COVID was over and people forgot about it.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Just kidding, I don't think we'll ever forget about it. A few disclaimers I'd like to make before I start this story. Number one, if you want to try and come for me in the comments, there's nothing you could say that I haven't already said to myself. I know that I made some irresponsible decisions and I've learned from them, and that's what matters. So please try and be kind. Number two is, I am not a doctor or virologist. Please don't take anything I say as medical advice. Number three is, there may be some humor in this video, but that doesn't mean that I don't take this situation seriously. Humor is one of the ways that I deal with negative situations. I should maybe talk to my therapist about that. Number four is, I don't care if you call me a sheep, okay? I know that there are tons of conspiracy theories surrounding COVID-19. Unfortunately, there's also a lot of anti-vax misinformation spreading around on the internet. I will say that I don't blame everybody for being a little bit skeptical. I mean, our current government here in Canada has done a lot of sketchy things in the past, so I don't fully trust them personally. A lot of people don't trust them. A lot of people think something fishy is going on. I'm not really here to talk about politics, but I will say that I have not been a fan of some of the things that the Liberal government has done, and some of the sketchy laws that they're kind of trying to sneak in while we're all distracted with COVID. Like, it's a little bit weird. So there are certain things that I think we should be skeptical about. There has been a lot of arguments around some of our freedoms being taken away. I don't fully disagree with that, but I also think that we wouldn't have so many rules in place if people had more common sense. The government can't just let everybody have a free-for-all because not everybody is smart enough. And I know that that's rude to say, but y'all know I ain't wrong.
She's got a point.
When I was in isolation, I spent a lot of time arguing with people on Facebook that were spreading misinformation. And I kind of just realized that it's not my job to police people's thoughts. What I did instead for my own mental health was unfollowed a lot of those people on Facebook. So if you're a friend of mine and you're spreading some kind of information surrounding COVID on your timeline and you've noticed that I haven't seen many of your posts in the last few months, it's because I unfollowed you. I'm sorry, I'll probably follow you back when this is hopefully all over one day. I just prefer to listen to the science, you know. I have done a lot of research on a lot of the theories that are being spread, and almost everything that I've looked into, I've been able to debunk myself by looking at studies and things like that. So it's not like I'm not listening to these people and not considering what they're saying at all. It's just that I've done my own research and formed my own opinion. So there is an anti-mask group here in the city where I live, and last week or the week before, they were protesting outside one of the hospitals here in the city. Imagine having the audacity and lack of self-awareness to protest outside of a hospital where people are literally dying from COVID-19 and our healthcare workers are working tirelessly to fight this pandemic.
You need to stop everything. This needs to stop now. This is not okay. This needs to stop now. This is cancer. This is so much cancer that I can feel the tumors growing on my back. And it's weighing down heavy on me, and it's not okay.
Like, I just can't with some of these people. And I'm not saying that everyone on my Facebook feed that has been spreading misinformation agrees with behaving that way, protesting outside of a hospital, but it's just very unfortunate to see, and I'm just not here for it. So now you know my opinion on that. Okay, so I've got my laptop here because when I caught COVID, I actually kept a timeline in my computer of everything that had happened. So I'm gonna use this as I tell this story to make sure that I hopefully don't miss anything. So when this pandemic first started in early 2020, I was pretty sure that if I ever caught COVID, I would be one of the people who is symptomatic, because I have a really shitty immune system. I've always been that way. I've always had a shitty immune system, so I was pretty sure that if I caught it, I would know. But unfortunately, it took me a while to actually figure out that I had it. So having a shitty immune system really didn't do as much good as I thought it was going to. I also have a chronic illness, and some of my chronic illness symptoms are similar to flu-like symptoms. So that was another reason why it was harder for me to peg down that I actually had it. On that note of me having a shitty immune system, the week that I actually caught COVID, I had been out with a friend who had said that he was feeling like he had the flu, and he got tested for COVID and it came back negative. So I was like, oh well, I probably don't have it then. I'm probably fine. But I wasn't fine. Halloween night 2020 is when all of this began. I might put some calendars up on the side here with dates circled so you guys can follow as I go along. But this is when the second wave kind of started. Saskatchewan, which is where I live, didn't really get hit in the first wave, like around this time last year. We locked down right away. We didn't have high case numbers because we have a pretty low population, and we were pretty okay throughout spring and summer. And then when fall came around, which is what Canada called the second wave, that's when we got hit. And at the time, I wasn't really paying attention to the news that much. I would turn on the news and sometimes I would just cry at some of the things that were going on, and I realized how damaging it was to my mental health. So I wasn't really paying attention to how much our case numbers had been rising. Currently, I have more of a balance between staying informed as to what's going on, what the laws are, what the case numbers are, and not taking in too much news and too much negative information. But in October, when all this happened, I hadn't really found that balance yet. And I'm not trying to make excuses for my actions or anything like that. I'm just trying to get you guys to understand where I was at mentally and why I think I made some of the decisions that I did. So I've always loved Halloween, and I was kind of in this headspace where I was like, well, I want to try and live my life as normally as possible because this whole pandemic thing obviously really sucks. So I invited my girlfriend to town that lives out of town. We're gonna call her Savannah. I actually let her pick her fake name for this video. And I invited her to come out with me for Halloween. So she came to the city. I went out dressed as N from the comic book Skin and Earth, which is written by my favorite singer, Lights, which is a whole other topic that might actually be my next video. I love Lights a lot, and I decided to go dressed as N, and as you can see in this photo here, ironically, it is a costume that requires a mask. And the comic books were written way before COVID happened, but in the comics, N has to wear a mask sometimes. So ironically, I caught COVID with a costume that I was supposed to be wearing a mask in. So there's that. So anyways, Savannah comes to town. We have some drinks at my place. We do some shots. We're feeling good. We go to a haunted house. The haunted house is scary, all that good stuff. And then later in the night, one of my other friends, we're gonna call him Mike, invites us out to a club. We get into the club. Nobody was social distancing. Nobody was sticking to their own table. The bathrooms were honestly disgusting. And you know, the thing about keeping people socially distanced, how do you do that when everybody's drunk in a bar? You know what I mean? So anyways, we're mostly sticking to our own group. And then this friend of mine from high school, we'll call him Kevin, comes up to me and he's like, "Hey, Danny, haven't seen you in a long time. What's up? Blah, blah, blah." And we get chatting and he's like, "Well, what are you guys doing after the bar? Do you want to come to our place for some drinks?" And I'm always up for a good time. So I was like, yeah, why not? So after the bar, we go to his place here in the city. And I can't remember what the max number was for gatherings at the time, but I don't think that we broke any rules. Like, there was maybe less than 10 people there. So all in all, it was a pretty decent night. Came home, my friend Savannah crashed on my couch, thought everything was cool. And then it was the 3rd of November that I first started to feel off. I had flu-like symptoms. I just remember feeling gross. And I was like, well, maybe this is because of my chronic illness, or maybe it's because I was hanging out with that other friend that didn't come out with me on Halloween earlier in the week, who said that he had flu-like symptoms, said he went and got tested for COVID, said that the guys that he worked with got tested for COVID and came back negative. So I was like, well, I probably don't have COVID, it's probably just a flu. And I went on with my life. And I actually, unfortunately, visited quite a few people and did a lot of things that week, but we'll get into that as we go along. On that November 3rd, which I believe was a Tuesday, I was like, I'll take some Dayquil and some Gravol and get on with my day. I got stuff to do. My mom wanted me to go and help her with something, and I had an eye doctor appointment, so I wanted to make it to the eye doctor, and I had a few other appointments throughout the week that I didn't want to miss. The other thing to note in this story was my birthday is on the 7th of November, which is a Saturday, and I knew that I wanted to do something for my birthday. On the 4th of November, my flu-like symptoms were in full swing. Nausea and fatigue were the main ones. I started to have a lack of appetite, and I was just telling myself, like, well, as long as I take some vitamins and get lots of rest, I should be feeling good enough to party for my birthday on the weekend. On the 6th of November, I started to have more cold-like symptoms. I had a little bit of a cough, but nothing too crazy, and I started to get a really runny nose. So originally for my birthday, I had booked a VIP table at a club. Table numbers were reduced, I remember that. I think you were only allowed to have like 4 or 6 people at a table. So I was gonna book a table at a club, and then I ended up canceling it because I wasn't feeling well, and I'm glad that I did. And I decided that I just wanted to have a few friends over for some drinks instead of going out to a club. So I think I had like 4 or 5 people over that night. For the record, was not breaking any laws. At the time, you were still allowed to gather with less than 10 people in your own indoor space. So we just played some card games, had some drinks, and I actually had a pretty decent night. It was a couple days after my birthday and I was still feeling pretty shitty, and I just thought to myself, like, man, I've been feeling crappy like this for over a week now, and it's not really getting any better. I phoned the health line, which is an information line here in our province. It's free, you call, you can talk to a nurse. So I called and I just said, like, hey, how am I supposed to know whether I should go get tested or not? And the nurse told me, well, with case numbers rising so much in the province right now, we're basically telling everybody to go get tested who has symptoms. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. So I went and got tested, and I remember it was the 11th of November because it was Remembrance Day, which for those of you who live in the States is kind of like Veterans Day for us. And I was watching a virtual Remembrance Day ceremony on my computer, and I got a phone call from public health informing me that I had tested positive for COVID-19. I was surprised, but not surprised at the same time. You know what I mean? It made sense because I had been so sick for so long. But I think that when all of this first started happening, I kind of had the mentality of like, oh, well, that won't happen to me. And I don't know why I thought that way, because like I said, I have a pretty shitty immune system. So it's not that out of the ordinary for me to pick up a virus that's going around, but public health also told me that I needed to immediately begin isolation and that my isolation would continue until the 17th of November unless I was still feeling symptoms at that time. So they said that they would call me around the time my isolation was supposed to end and check in with me to see how I was doing. So here's how my friends ended up that I was out with on Halloween. Savannah never got sick at all. She was asymptomatic. And she also has 2 kids. She never spread it to her kids. So that was really interesting. And my other friend, Mike, did get sick. He had some symptoms, but he, same as me, just kind of thought it was a cold or flu and it went away in a few days. So he never went and got tested either. But we all kind of came to the conclusion that it was COVID-19 that we had. I mean, Savannah knew for sure because she went and tested positive. As for my friend whose place we went to party at after the bar, I did message him and let him know that I had tested positive, and he was like, oh, sweet, great. And then I never did hear back from him, so I'm not sure if he also tested positive, but I did my due diligence in letting him know. Shortly after my birthday weekend, I found a news article claiming that the bar that we were at declared an outbreak. So there was obviously somebody who went to that club that night. I'm assuming that they didn't know that they had COVID and spread it to others in the bar. After that happened, the bar shut down, and I'm pretty sure that they haven't been open since. As far as my friends at my birthday party go, I had everybody sleep over because I didn't want anybody drinking and driving, obviously, and I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, so one of my friends had to sleep with me in my bed, and he didn't catch it, but another person at my birthday party did. So there was one person at my birthday party who tested positive. I consider that lucky out of the other 4 or 5 that were there who didn't catch it. Also, my mom was with me not only earlier in that week, but also on my birthday. We had supper together for my birthday, and she tested negative, so I was glad about that. And I was also glad that nobody that I had been in contact with, as far as I know, was in contact with anybody who had health issues or was elderly. So all in all, things could have been a lot worse. I feel like after you've had COVID-19, you kind of become this artifact. Like, everybody wants to know the story behind it and how you felt while you had it and things like that. And at the time when I had caught it, there hadn't been as many people who had also caught it. I mean, now we're in our 3rd wave, and I know way more people who have caught it. But at the time, we were just going into our 2nd wave. And like I said, we didn't really get hit in the 1st wave. So there was lots of people who were super curious about me catching COVID and how I felt at the time and things like that. So on the topic of becoming an artifact, I had let some of my friends on Snapchat know that I had tested positive for COVID-19 and I would be in isolation until further notice. And as they say on one of my favorite shows, Letterkenny,
bad gas travels real fast in a small town.
a couple days after I had told some friends on Snapchat that I had COVID, I received a message from a girl who lives in my hometown. We're gonna call her Katie. And I am not really close with this person. I mean, I don't have any ill will or negative thoughts towards her, but we're just not that close, you know what I mean? I'll say, hey, how's it going, if I see her out in public, but we're more acquaintances than friends. So that's, I think, part of why I felt like this message was a little invasive to me. And I'm not going to put it up on the screen or anything here because I'm not here to expose anyone or start drama. But she basically said to me, hey, I heard you tested positive for COVID and I'm just wondering if you've been in town lately. Now, at the time, keep in mind, I was feeling down because I knew that I had to isolate and be alone. I was also feeling physically sick, and I also knew that I had took it upon myself to make my own phone calls informing people that I had COVID. So with public health, they do their own contact tracing. They will phone people to let you know that you've been in contact with someone who's tested positive for COVID. But I knew that they were way behind on contact tracing because the numbers were rising so rapidly in the province. So not only did I let everybody in my personal life know that I had been in contact with over my birthday weekend and all that I had tested positive for COVID, but I also took it upon myself to phone all of the businesses that I was at where I had one-on-one appointments with people. And I didn't have to do that. Legally, public health doesn't have to tell you who you were in contact with that had COVID-19. So knowing that, I had took it upon myself to let everybody know who could potentially be in danger. I definitely felt like this message that I received from this Katie was an invasion of privacy. And I do feel bad for people, and I don't mean that in a condescending way at all, but we are bombarded with so much information right now on the news, and new information coming out all the time as scientific research progresses. So I don't particularly blame people for being scared or not knowing what to do or feeling like they have the right to invade somebody's privacy just because they feel like they could potentially be in danger. What I'm trying to say is I can see where this person was coming from, but I was kind of bitchy to her. I did apologize for that, but I basically explained to her, everybody who needs to know knows what they need to know already. Need to know basis type of thing, right? And then she said to me, well, I just want to know if I need to be more careful with my kids in town. And I was like, well, what do you mean? We're supposed to be acting like COVID is everywhere right now because the case numbers were getting so high. You're supposed to be careful when you go out to a public place. You're still supposed to be washing your hands, wearing a mask, social distancing, and all of that stuff. So I didn't really understand what her point was. I had not been in contact with anybody that she had been in contact with, so I said to her, if you needed to know, you would have known already, and that's point blank, period. Plus, the chances of catching COVID in, say, a grocery store are way more slim compared to having actual in-person contact with someone who has tested positive. Anyways, back to my timeline here. It says November 12th to 16th, so I was still in isolation. Slowly started to feel better. Nose was running a lot, but never became completely plugged. Had a minor cough. Sneezing a lot, but never got a fever. Completely lost sense of smell and taste shortly after I was confirmed as positive. Feeling like I'm not getting as much oxygen as I should be in my body, but not having any specific breathing problems. Still experiencing lack of appetite. So that was the majority of my symptoms: nausea, fatigue, runny nose, lack of appetite. But like I said, I never got a fever, and I never lost my sense of smell and taste until like a few days after finding out that I was positive, which, in case you forgot, I found out I was positive on the 11th of November. So that's also, I think, part of why it was harder for me to pinpoint right away that I had COVID, because if I had lost my sense of smell and taste right away, I would have been like, I probably have COVID, I should go and get tested. So as far as what isolation was like, honestly, it sucked. Like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was sick. I live alone in a 1-bedroom apartment. I didn't have anybody to look after me. It was just me and my cat. I spent a lot of time watching shows, surfing the internet, arguing with idiots on Facebook. I was allowed to go outside on my balcony, but it was winter time, so there was really no point in going out there and freezing my ass off. It was very mentally taxing. One of my friends who was at my birthday, him and I have talked about this whole experience since then, and he said to me, yeah, when people ask me what was COVID like, I tell them honestly, the effect on my mental health was far more significant than the effect on my physical health, and I agree with that. I remember there was a few nights that I spent crying on the phone to my friends who were also in isolation and also feeling lonely because it sucked. So on the 18th of November, I have in here, finally started to feel better with some minor lingering symptoms. It was really weird during the tail end of it because I would have symptoms for like a day or two, and then they'd go away for a day, and then they'd come back for a day, and then they'd go away. It was really strange. I had called the health line to to discuss this with them, and I actually got forwarded to one of the head nurses, and she told me that it's like that for a lot of people. Near the end, as your body is trying to fight it off, there will be those periods of fluctuation. But the problem with that is you need to be symptom free for 48 hours before public health will release you from isolation. So as you may recall, I was supposed to be released on the 17th of November, but I wasn't because I hadn't been symptom free for 48 hours. On the 23rd of November, public health called to ask how I was doing, and I said I was still having some fluctuating symptoms. And they asked me, well, has there been a period where you've been symptom-free for 48 hours in a row? And I said, yes, there has. And they said, okay, well, then you can be released from isolation because you're not likely to be contagious anymore. And then on the 24th of November, I have in here mild cough that still seems to be fluctuating and persisting, and some fatigue as well. Also still have runny nose. That was my biggest thing. My nose was so runny. I would fill up my bathroom garbage can every day with Kleenexes. And then the last note I have in here is December 5th and 6th, still had symptoms. So I was sick for well over a month. And as far as lingering symptoms go, the only one that I still have now is a runny nose. I was talking to my dad about it one day, and he was like, well, that runs in the family. But I never had it this bad until I had COVID. So it's weird that I still get a runny nose all the time. Like every day I'm blowing my nose. And that's really the only symptom that has lingered for me. And I consider myself lucky that way because I have some friends who have caught it, who caught it in like the first wave like a year ago, that are still having lung problems now. So we all just need to be careful because it affects everybody differently. My bubble is definitely smaller now than it was in the fall. Cases are pretty bad here right now. We're in our third wave. Variants have also become a great concern in the city where I live. So I definitely learned from my mistakes, and I've been a lot more responsible since then. I still think that mental health is just as important as physical health is, so I'm not just going to not see some of my friends and family at all, but my circle is a lot smaller. As far as getting vaccinated goes, if you're American and you're watching this, you are lucky because we are way behind compared to you guys on the vaccine train. So right now, I think the age group is 37 and older, so I'm not even in the age bracket yet to go and get vaccinated. I don't currently work a job because I have a chronic illness, so I don't really have a reason to be at the top of the list, you know. I kind of have the mentality where there's other healthcare workers and first responders and teachers and all of that who need to be vaccinated before I do. But yeah, the bottom line is, I guess you just don't know, man. You don't know how it's going to affect you. You don't know if you're going to catch it or not. You don't know if you're going to be asymptomatic or symptomatic. Unfortunately, with these new variants running around, younger people are getting more sick. More people are being hospitalized. And I can't say for sure whether I would catch a variant or not just because I've had COVID-19. A doctor here on YouTube who actually has some informative videos surrounding topics like this is Dr. Hansen. I have learned a lot from watching him, and I've learned a lot about the variants, and I just feel like he brings information in a factual and calm manner and not with a bunch of negative energy behind it like the news on TV does. And he also was not caught partying on a boat in Florida like Dr. Mike was. Yeah, that wasn't a good look for him, was it? If I was to give you guys anything to take away from this video, it would be try to find a balance between staying mentally healthy but also not putting people at risk. So like I said, my bubble is smaller now, but I do have some close friends and family that I see, because if I didn't, I would go mentally insane. Don't live your life in complete fear over this, because I just feel like it's not good to do that. I think that we need to be logical and smart about the decisions that we're making. If you guys have any questions, if I missed anything, leave them down in the comment section below and I'll try to answer them for you. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. My next video will probably be a more positive one. And I don't have a consistent upload schedule yet. I know that most YouTubers try to aim for at least once a week. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do that yet. We'll see how things go. But you might be getting videos more like every week and a half to 2 weeks. Once I have a consistent upload schedule, I'll definitely let you guys know. To all of my family and friends who have wanted to hear this story for a while, thank you for watching, and I miss all of you so much. I did watch a teeny bit of the news yesterday and saw that Canada is supposed to be getting more vaccines soon. So here's hoping that we can get back to somewhat normal sooner rather than later. Alright, that's it for me. I hope you guys stay happy, healthy, and safe.